I haven't filmed in so long. This feels so unfamiliar, which is really weird. Hey friends, welcome back. I haven't been very active on social media and here on YouTube for a while now, and some of you might know I started a new job about 2 months ago, and I really wanted to give myself grace to get into the swing of things, to get into a routine and not to stress myself with videos alongside of it. Learning to give myself space and grace is really something that I want to prioritize. I think a lot of us know that starting new jobs can be very draining, especially in the beginning when you're still trying to get the hang of things. About 1 or 2 weeks ago, I felt like I was slowly starting to get the hang of things, get into the swing of things, and that is when we sadly very unexpectedly lost a family member, and that was really hard for us, especially the past 1 to 2 weeks. Johannes' dad passed away very unexpectedly and very suddenly, and it was a huge shock to all of us that we all did not anticipate. And even though he might not technically be family yet when it comes to societal standards, I really did already see him as my dad-in-law for quite some time now, and it was someone that was very dear to me, and yeah, so it was also a big loss for me. Since his passing, especially in the beginning, I felt in this very weird state of limbo, almost like nothing is real, almost like I was in this video game that felt very strange or even half nightmare-ish. But luckily, now that the initial shock and incredible sadness has passed, I'm starting to feel more like myself again, especially when I'm distracted with day-to-day things like work and chores. I feel pretty much fine, but then there are those moments where I do kind of resort back to that sadness. And because his passing was so unexpected and sudden, it really took a much deeper emotional toll on us than as if it would more anticipated, I guess. Sadly, it often takes a very tragic situation like this for us to really understand and comprehend our mortality, and the fact that everyone has to die someday, and most of us will have to live through the loss of a loved one. So knowing that a lot of people are going through something similar right now, or just generally somewhere on this world, felt like something that was a little bit comforting for me. The fact that if other people that have gone through this came out on the other side and survived and got to process this, then I can do this as well. Something that I felt was really interesting was noticing the thoughts that I had in that initial shock and period of sadness, and kind of observing subtle mindset shifts that I also was able to notice. One thought that happened pretty soon in the beginning, once I had gotten the news, was this sudden urge to seize the day, in a sense, to move up all important life events that I imagine for myself. So things like getting married and having children suddenly was something that I wanted to rush to do. At first I felt it was really strange to think about something like this in the face of something so sad, but I guess it's because we're reminded of our mortality, that someday all of us have to die and to leave this earth, and why wait for something that I already know is going to be really important for me. And I felt like I wanted to do those things before I someday have to die, and we never know when that will be. And similarly, I also was reminded of my parents' mortality. Now they're not too old yet, but again, I had this feeling of wanting to move back closer to my parents now, even sooner than later, it is something that has always been on my mind or in my plan for the future, but it wasn't as soon as I would like to have now. We don't know how long we have with friends or parents, and why wait for something that is so important to us. One of the things that made me really sad is that Johanna's dad now won't be able to experience us getting married and having children, and yeah, it is something that I always envisioned him being a part of, but sadly that is not the case anymore. But that also means that I want to kind of I had this feeling that I want to move it up to have my family member be able to be a part of it. Now, it's not necessarily like I want to have children right now and get married right now, but through this process I did realize how important these things are to me. The other interesting thing I realized is I suddenly wanted to get rid of more stuff. I already live a pretty minimalistic life, and I'm very conscious about everything that I bring into my life, but I wanted to live even more minimalistically, or just to get rid of more stuff and to live with less, because I do think there are things here and there that I could live without that wouldn't make my life harder. I just suddenly realized how silly it is to put so much value and effort into buying things, for example, considering to buy a certain thing or not for ages, and spending a lot of money on it and a lot of thought into browsing and purchasing, when one day when we die, all those things will most likely be thrown away. Even though loved ones might want to keep a thing or two as a sentimental reminder, still at least 98% of your stuff will most likely be thrown out. And how silly is it that we spend so much of our lives thinking about accumulating things, buying things, and making sure we have bigger homes for these things when they're then just thrown out. Then something else I also realized is that we have all our priorities wrong. Not I guess us as a society, but also me as a person. I mean, I think I am more conscious about this than maybe the average person, but I still have places to improve, places to learn, and yeah. So what I'm thinking about is putting so much importance on your job, on money, on your appearance, and people's opinion as well. At the end of it all doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is how you impacted and inspired the people that are closest to you and around you, and that you lived a satisfied and full life. And with full, I don't mean that you did a bunch of things, but that you did things that were true to you, that you wanted to do, that you're happy with. In the end, in death, we're all the same. We all turn into worm food, and what job you had, how much money you had, how you looked, it all doesn't matter. We all die and rot, and how conventionally pretty you were or weren't doesn't matter, because no one looks good in death or rotting. I'm sorry if this is a little dark maybe for some of you, but it is the truth. And I think that society demonizes and pushes death as something so ugly, and it just isn't a part of our society anymore like it used to be, in the sense that death is kind of often beautified and hushed away and not shown. So I definitely want to try to put less effort into things like looks and money and stressing about things at work, because in the end it doesn't really matter, and all it does is it takes up precious energy and mind space and time of yours. If we freed up that time, we could spend that time with more valuable things, like spending time with loved ones, things that bring us value, things that bring us joy, instead of spending so much time thinking about all the things I want to buy and all the expensive creams I want to slather on myself to be pretty or to reverse aging in some way. It just all suddenly became so silly. Then, especially when that initial shock passed, I started to think about what things Johannes' dad, his name is Peter, what he taught me, specifically what stayed with me. He had a very unique and full and adventurous life, and he was an artist among a lot of things, and his life and his way of life and his view on life was so interesting to me. Something that I find so inspiring and so impressive is he stayed 100% true to himself. He knew who he saw himself as, what his values are, what is important to him and what isn't, and he didn't let himself be, or his opinion be strayed or swayed by other people or public opinion or trends. He, for example, wore the same outfit for 30, 40 years, and he looked stylish. That was his style, and he didn't sway just for trends. He had a very unique way of living, kind of like Picasso, in the sense that he would paint into late at night and then get up really late in the morning as well. And that was what worked for him. He didn't care if what other people thought about it. He knows that that works for his creativity, for his rhythm, and that is how he decided to live his life. As a people pleaser myself, it is something that is very difficult for me. I often will sway and change myself and things that I plan for other people to suit the comfort of other people at the expense of myself, at the expense of my comfort. And I sometimes have to really be careful not to sacrifice myself too much for the comfort of others, especially if the others aren't that important to me or don't value me as much. Sticking to this topic, I remember something he said that really stuck with me, and that was that he will, of course, clean and tidy his home as he sees fit or to his liking, but he won't go above and beyond and change his way of living and his routine and what is important to him for someone else. So if someone were to complain that his home was too messy or too unclean or just not the way that that person likes it, then he said then that person doesn't have to visit me. And for some reason that really stuck with me, because I would definitely change a lot of things and change myself and just to people please too much to the point of I'm really bending myself completely to suit the other person's need. And he was a super clean person, super organized, so I don't think anyone had a problem with that, but it just showed that he really stuck to himself and what is important to him. Something else I found really inspirational in the face of all this was his absolute peace with his mortality. Now, I'm not someone that is necessarily afraid of dying, but I would definitely not be ready to die soon, and hopefully that is also not the case. But he was so at peace with it, and I found that so inspirational because I think very little people really are. He knew that someday, like all of us, he would have to return to the earth, and that was okay with him, and he was ready for that. He even wrote this beautiful poem about this, and he wrote it in German, but I translated it into English so I can share it with you. But of course it is so much more beautiful in the original language. So for those of you that do understand German, I will have the original in the description so you can go ahead and read it, because it is such a beautiful poem. At the end of our short life, we will again become one with nature. Like the leaves in fall, we will turn to dust. Don't bemoan your mortality, but always be ready to cross over. That is why I live happily, one with nature. Because you only have one life, and that is yours. I guess on one hand, I feel like I'm really not ready to die because of all the things that I still want to live through, especially getting married, starting a family. That's something that I've realized through this process is so important to me. But then again, there are also a lot of things that I've already done and gone through and experienced that I'm so proud of myself and so thankful and lucky to be able to have experienced that. So there are also a lot of things that have already made my life really beautiful. I guess with our mortality in mind, it's not necessarily about going out there with a bucket list and trying to cross everything off right away, but it is about being very mindful of your mortality. I think oftentimes we just assume that we will live till this old age, and maybe a lot of us will, but that is not a guaranteed. And with that in mind, I think we shouldn't put off things that we know are just really important for us, and to live a life that is very intentional and very, I guess, sculpted in a way that is us. We truly need to find out what we want, who we are, and to stay true to ourselves. Now, that doesn't mean we have to be selfish and not care about other people. We still have to go about life compassionately and be really aware of how we're impacting people around us. But we also shouldn't bend ourselves and change ourselves to please other people. In the end, it is our own life that we have to be satisfied with and happy with. So we should go out there, live a life that is true to us and true to our values, and stop pushing things into the future that don't need to be. I guess it's not necessarily all new information, but in the face of death, all of this kind of comes bubbling up, and we realize how fragile our lives also are. And I really hope that through this sad experience that I also gain positive lessons, and that I won't resort back to this kind of automated, unintentional way of living. Not that I've been living super unintentionally, but it could definitely be a little bit more intentional with how I want to live, what I want to do, and to create my life a bit more actively than as passively that it has been so far. So this is just a reminder to you as well to, I guess, not forget that we are immortal and that we should go out there and do what is important to us. This is a little bit of a different video, but I really wanted to share this with you. And also, just for me, I couldn't just go on to filming normal videos without having talked about this, since it is something that is a part of my life, and I didn't want to just continue on as if nothing happened. But yeah, I do want to now try to go back to my normal posting. So if you enjoy videos on minimalism and living better and happier and healthier with less, then be sure to subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you in my next video. Thank you so much for joining me here today, and I hope you have a lovely day. Bye.